Hello my fellow noobs and newbies to the channel. So you may have stumbled upon this video because like me, you are in the process of becoming a mangaka or are thinking about becoming a mangaka in the near future. And maybe you're frustrated with your art experience or you're scouring the internet to find any information possible to know where to start drawing or what is the best place to learn how to draw. And it really got me thinking since my last video, what is the most essential part of drawing, or what is the most essential part of learning how to draw? And from my experience, I've done a lot of Google research. I even looked up videos on YouTube and even started following many different artists online, either through their website or on Instagram. And you may have heard of some famous names like Proco, Learn to Draw Manga, and way back when YouTube was kind of getting its feet off the ground, I started following Mark Crilly. But the whole point of my video today is what is the most essential part of learning how to draw? And there are two different opinions that I see are the most common opinions of where to start, which is learning how to draw with basic shapes like circles and triangles. And then the other opinion, which is what I believed in and what I still somewhat believe in, but the other opinion is learning how to draw anatomy, because learning how to draw shapes and anatomy really are essential pieces of learning how to draw manga, because you really need to know how to draw characters and you really need to know how to draw backgrounds and buildings, and you need both anatomy and shapes to do that. But after humbly expressing my opinion online, and of course getting roasted by random YouTubers, that is when I came to realization that maybe anatomy is not the most essential part of drawing, but I still firmly believe that it is one of the most essential parts of drawing. Now, before you start drawing any type of circles, triangles, or any type of characters in any way, shape, or form, pun intended by the way, I recommend that you hear me out while I explain the positives of starting with shapes and forms, as well as starting with anatomy. Now, with shapes and forms, they allow you to simplify the whole artwork by itself. So in my drawing here, I was able to create the pyramids by the use of triangles, and I was able to create my character Anubis by using circles and ovals, or some of them call them ellipses. And this allows me to see where the characters like eyes, lips, ears, and other features are going to be on the character. And then the triangles allow me to see how the pyramids are going to be shaped and formed. Now with anatomy, my positive experience with anatomy is that I'm able to think and visualize where the actual eyes and mouth go. And that's kind of the background knowledge that I had before I was able to start using the shapes and putting them in the proper place. Otherwise, my previous method is when I started just drawing randomly. Mind you, I didn't think about shapes. I was putting the eyes in unproportionate places, and I was putting the mouth in unproportionate places, and then my characters started to look like aliens, or they started to look like they were like part of some freakish science experiment. But like I said, there is positives to knowing both. There's positives to being able to visualize the shapes and forms in your composition, and there's positives of having that background knowledge of anatomy to know where those actual shapes and forms go, especially if you're trying to draw characters. Now, if you're like me and you believe that anatomy is the most essential part of drawing, then please feel free to hit that like button. But if you think that basic shapes and forms are more essential and more important to learning how to draw instead of anatomy, then please feel free to leave a comment and let me know why you think that is. Now, one of the reasons why I don't believe that basic shapes and forms are one of the most essential pieces of drawing is because after my own experience from buying multiple books on how to draw characters, how to draw female, how to draw male, how to draw unique characters, I just saw these random shapes and I couldn't quite piece them together in my mind. But after studying anatomy through different type of books that are specifically tailored to artists, I started to learn how the muscle groups interact with each other, how the bones interact with each other, and how the figurative forms are able to be made through that kind of knowledge. So then I just kind of combined the information and knowledge that I got from basic shapes and forms with anatomy, and then I was able to draw more figurative characters that were more interesting to me. Now, one of the examples that I wanted to provide you is with my current drawing here. And with my character in Noobish, you can see that I kind of changed his facial expression. At first I had his mouth kind of open, but then I looked at it again and then I thought, oh no, that is really creepy. But then I decided to keep his mouth closed because I think it would be better if he was more like biting his lips in excitement, seeing the pyramids that he's been wanting to see for so long. But the way that I was able to create this is because I was able to envision where his mouth would go, which is about a quarter down from the nose area. And the other pieces, basically using the Loomis method. I definitely recommend to look it up, and I may be going over this in one of my future videos. But if you believe that I should go over this, please feel free to let me know in the comment section as well. And now I really want to share with you why I believe anatomy is one of the most essential parts of learning how to draw. Now with my character in Noobish, I kind of envisioned the basic facial structure of the human face, and I started with the mandible and the maxilla. Now the mandible is just a fancy scientific term of the lower jawbone, while the maxilla is the upper jawbone. And with the mandible is the only moving part of the mouth, while the maxilla is not movable because it's more attached to the facial structure. Now, what you also might not know about the maxilla is that it's just the lower piece of the nasal structure, and it's also half of the eye socket, more or less. I shouldn't say it's part of the eye socket, but it kind of holds some of that eye socket in place. Now, I don't want to totally discredit learning basic shapes and forms as one of the essential pieces, because without that, I probably wouldn't have been able to draw my character Noobish as good. But I do feel like basic shapes and forms and anatomy go hand in hand. So really, you can't go wrong with one or the other. So that just kind of loops back to what your preference is. Do you learn better by learning those shapes and forms first, or do you learn better by actually knowing the facial structure or the body structure and the anatomy? And for me, the anatomy was the more important part because I really wanted to know how the figures are, how the places of the body parts go. I mean, it is one thing to see it, but it's another thing to actually draw it and understand conceptually through your mind. And not just to wrap things up with this video, I still firmly believe that anatomy is one of the most essential parts of drawing. Maybe it's not at the very top of everyone's bucket list, but it is very important to know the facial structure, the body structure, because it allows us to be able to create forms in the way that we want it to be. But I still see a value in learning how to draw basic shapes and learning how to use those to simplify complex drawings. So what do you believe is the better part of learning how to draw? Is it through anatomy or is it through basic shapes? Well, I'll just leave that to you to decide. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.